Well, good afternoon and welcome to CROWD Church. My name is Matt Edmondson and beside me is the exceptionally talented, beautiful and all-round good egg, which is Sally Birch. Sally, how are we doing?
What an introduction. Thank you, Matt. I'm doing good today. How are you?
Yeah, really good. I figure I should do the introductions. I figure after our little conversation this morning at Frontline, it's probably best that I do the intros, right?
Are you worried about what I'm going to say about you, Matt, if you let me do the introduction? I'll have to jump in there first next time, won't I?
Yeah. See what comes out of it next time. But no, welcome to CROWD Church. If this is your first time here, big warm welcome to you. As I said, we are an online church. We are for those that might not see the point of church, but you're kind of curious. You want to find out what this is all about. Well, that's what we're going to get into this Sunday afternoon. Oh yes.
Yeah,
so what have we got coming up?
Absolutely. Well, it's brilliant to have you with us this afternoon. So I do hope you feel very welcome. Please feel free to comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Join in with us, feel part of us this afternoon. Now, we have got the usual things coming up today. So we have got Matt speaking. So Matt is speaking about people pleasing and does people pleasing ruin your life? So looking forward to that. We've got some worship as well, and Matt and I will be joining together again after the worship to have a little discussion about his talk, and we would love you to get involved with that as well. So if you've got questions, comments, anything that you want to say about that, get involved.
Absolutely. And before you ask me, here it is. He says, actually, the button's not working. You figure out what finger you're going to use. There we go. I'll try it that way.
Oh, look, almost. I just can't. There, yeah.
It just makes me laugh every week.
So if you don't want to comment, but you do want to get in touch with us, another way to do it is that you can use the WhatsApp number. So do send us a message via that number. We would love to hear from you. And if you want anything for us to pray about as well, we'd be happy to do that, wouldn't we, Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah, we love it when we get your prayer requests because, why not, right? You don't have to be a Christian to send in prayer requests. We just pray for everybody that asks. So do send stuff in and we would love to pray for you. So, yeah, and do that on the WhatsApp number straight away.
Why do you do it so easily and it takes me
a while? Yeah. I have lots of, I don't know, let's hypothesize. Why does it? I don't know. Maybe no.
Let's not go there, hey?
Yeah,
let's not go there. It's reversed. For those of you that are wondering why it's so hard for me to actually be able to control my body, what you can see and what I can see is reverse. So it's a bit different. That's my excuse anyway. That's my
And you should definitely stick with that as an excuse. People might actually believe you, Sal, as well. I don't know, but they might actually believe you. Listen, it's great that you are with us. Welcome to CROWD Church. As Sal said, do make sure you comment and you say hi. It'd be great to see who we got in the comments, actually. Let's have a look. We've got Matt, as usual. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your glamorous co-host, Sally Birch. You're glamorous, apparently.
Glamorous. I like it. Thank you, Matt. It's glamorous. Yeah.
And it was awesome to see everybody at Frontline. Yeah, it was. Sally and I were at Frontline this morning. Just so you know, Frontline is a church in Liverpool and CROWD is connected to Frontline. And it was the first in-person service this morning. And so Sal and I went along and got to talk to the folks down there, which was great. It's great to see everybody. So enjoyed that. And if you are in Liverpool and you would like to go to a local church, then try Frontline because we're doing our in-person services. I said that right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we definitely, the value of being at an in-person service is so good. You get to see people and sing with people and just kind of feel that fellowship. But we are here for your digital church if you can't go to a church service or if you want to find out a bit more first. So yeah, that was really good this morning, wasn't it, Matt, to be with everybody? But we're here this afternoon as well. So double whammy today.
Double whammy, yeah. Matt and Sally twice in a day. Wow.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. there's no reason. So Antoine says, hey, how you doing? Antoine and Priscilla, good to see you guys. Nicola's in the house. Hey, Nicola, how you doing? Hope you guys have had a good week. What I won't play you this week on catch up because we didn't have a chance to do it. But what I did get from Nicola was, did I tell you it was my birthday?
It was Matt's birthday this week. Guesses of his age, please put them in the comments. Anybody would like to guess Matt's age?
Yes, I was going to give a prize to someone that guesses the right age. We have no idea what the prize is. But listen, I don't know if I can play this actually, whether you can hear this.
Yesterday, but for some reason it didn't.
Can you hear that?
Send. So I'll redo it and
Yeah.
sing you.
Yeah, so this is Nicola singing Happy Birthday to me.
Dear man.
So
I'm not too sure she would want you to play that. But thanks, Matt. Thanks. Yeah, I'm liking Mike Connolly's guess. Well done, Mike Connolly. Yeah, I would say
52, cheeky little tyke.
that's a good guess. Well done.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Me and Mike used to be friends. A long
Brilliant. Yeah,
time ago.
We were laughing last week. We were talking about Matt's upcoming birthday and the fact that Matt had already planned out all his presents and knew exactly what he was getting. Matt, were there any surprises? Did you get anything else?
Let me see. Were there any surprises? Yeah, I mean, a few people bought me stuff that I wasn't expecting. A friend of mine in New Zealand sent me some alcohol, which I have no idea what it is. I've never had it before. It's quite an unusual flavored alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a theme actually. Jen bought me some gin. So, there was a little bit of alcohol which was purchased for me, which was, it's all very welcome, isn't it? So yeah, there was a few things. Sal.
Good.
It wasn't all totally planned out, like you think it was. But
Good.
I did have a fantastic day. So thank you very much for everybody that said happy birthday. I did have a superb day at doing absolutely nothing. It was a really lazy day and
Good.
most enjoyable.
Brilliant. Oh, that's good. That's what you need sometimes. We hope that you've all had a good week as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in England, the lockdown is sort of slightly eased this week. So hopefully you are enjoying going shopping or doing some of those things that we haven't been able to do for a long time.
Yeah,
You going to Primark anytime soon, Matt?
Yeah, no, not at all.
I can't
did go
imagine
into
you
town
queuing
though.
outside Primark.
No.
Oh, you did?
I did. I went into town this week. I went in on Friday because I'll give them a shout out. Bar Burritos. They sent me a thing saying come get a free burrito on your birthday. So I did.
Nice.
I went in and got my free burrito and sat and read in town for a little bit on Friday. It was heaving. So I just sat in my little corner and left everybody alone. Didn't need to buy anything. I just cycled in and cycled out. So yeah, it was. Don't go to town would be my advice. It's just crazy down there. But yeah, it's good to see everybody out and about and enjoying the sunshine. So what's Mike put here? Was it a surprise that Liverpool scored at Anfield for your birthday week? Yes.
Starting early with the football bants. Yeah, let's not go there.
Yep, absolutely. I need to come up and check it's okay for you to drink the gin. Okay, so yeah, everyone's now wanting to come around my house for a bit of a gin and tonic.
Yes, brilliant. We're looking forward to those invites, Matt.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
crack open the New Zealand, whatever it is that you've been given. I definitely think we need to have a little bit of a share of that.
Well, come try it anytime, so you're more than welcome, obviously. But yeah, no.
Brilliant.
Well, should we jump into it?
I think we should.
Okay, so we have been working our way through Mark's Gospel for it seems ever.
Feels like a long time.
Every CROWD live stream, I was thinking about this morning when we were talking about it at Frontline. Every live stream we've done, with the exception of Christmas and Mother's Day, on Remembrance Sunday, has been our journey through Mark's Gospel, and we are still going through it. So we are going to carry on with our study of Mark's Gospel, which is one of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament, which sort of outlines the life of Jesus. And we're kind of picking up the story following on from what James talked about last week, where Jesus was arrested. We're kind of getting towards the end of the book now. Jesus was arrested, and so now this week it's the trial as he stands before Pilate. So here we go. Okay, so this week we are looking at the trial of Jesus, and we are going to see how people-pleasing brings out humanity in all its ugliest forms. Oh yes, and as we go through it, we are going to be asking ourselves why approval addiction is going to be a challenge for all of us. What can we learn from these lessons? And does people pleasing actually ruin lives? That's our title question, isn't it? Now, I would like to say right here at the start that I think all of us, you, me, we are at times people pleasers, right? And let's be honest, it's not always a bad thing to be a people pleaser. I want to please my wife, for example. Happy wife, happy life. A mantra that makes a lot of sense, right? But it's when it goes beyond that, when it brings out the worst in us, it's the negative side that we've all experienced that I want to dig into. Now, the Bible tells us that fearing people is a dangerous trap. I mean, that's pretty clear, isn't it? This whole idea of addiction approval, this idea of people pleasing is a dangerous trap. I just love that phrase, and one that we need to be aware of. So how does this relate to today's passage? How does it relate to the scripture of Jesus being on trial? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's read it, shall we? Very early in the morning, the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law, the entire high council met to discuss their next step. They bound Jesus, led him away, and took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "You have said it." Then the leading priest kept accusing him of many crimes. And Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer them? What about all of these charges they are bringing against you?" But Jesus said nothing, much to Pilate's surprise. Now, it was the governor's custom each year during the Passover celebration to release one prisoner, anyone the people requested. One of the prisoners at the time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. The crowd went to Pilate and asked him to release a prisoner as usual. "Would you like me to release to you the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked. For he realized by now that the leading priests had arrested Jesus out of envy. But at this point, the leading priests stirred up the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Pilate asked them, "Then what should I do with this man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" "Why?" Pilate demanded. "What crime has he committed?" But the mob roared even louder, "Crucify him!" So to pacify the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged and with a lead-tipped whip, then turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. Wow, right? Happy reading on a Sunday afternoon. That's today's passage. And in this story, I mean, there's lots that we could talk about, right? But there are specifically 3 people groups that I want to look at and see how this idea of people pleasing affects the unrolling of all these events. So the first group to look at are the religious leaders. They are the church leaders at the time, the righteous men, the stand-up men, the community leaders. They were the people that the town kind of looked up to. Do you know what I mean? Everyone admired them because they were men of God. Yet here they are lying through their teeth. I mean, lying in massive ways. How often is people pleasing at the root of lies? I mean, it's a great question, isn't it? Are we lying to please the people in front of us, telling them something we think they want to hear? Or are we lying to make something look or sound better than it actually is, so that they will think better about us, or our product, or our company, or our service, or our family, or our church? The next person on our list is Pilate. And what a dude this guy was. I find him absolutely fascinating, right? And the lessons of leadership here are just incredible, especially when you read about what he actually did. I mean, here is a man that knows Jesus is innocent, that he's been arrested because of envy, right? I mean, underline that statement in your mind. Pilate is a man that knows Jesus is innocent, but sends him off to be crucified. Can you imagine such a thing, especially in this day and age, right? I mean, crucifixion was, well, it was a horrific form of death. And to add to it, he doesn't just send Jesus to be crucified. No. For good measure, he sends him off to be flogged and whipped as well. But Jesus is innocent and Pilate knows it. I find this utterly bonkers. I mean, talk about unjust. And in reality, it's murder. Okay, a powerful man who should have known better, who could have done better, didn't. So why didn't he do the right thing? Why did he do that most heinous of things and condemn an innocent man? And I wonder if it's the same reason, perhaps, that the religious leaders did it. And if I take a stop and a pause here, that in itself is an interesting point. You see, on one side, you've got the church leaders, the religious leaders. On the other side, you've got the non-church, right? Pilate wasn't part of that church. He didn't have the same religious beliefs that those religious leaders had. Yet they both acted in the same way, in the most ugliest form of humanity, condemning an innocent man to death. Now, the text tells us that Pilate asked the crowd for their opinion, right? And he thought they made a mistake when they answered. But they just kept shouting him down. And they kept shouting and shouting until Pilate did what they wanted. He capitulates under the pressure. It's not great leadership, is it? I mean, Pilate was so concerned with public opinion that he does the exact wrong thing. He wanted to please the crowd, knowing that the crowd was fundamentally wrong, which caused him to do the wrong thing. So people pleasing stops you leading, right? We see that with Pilate. It causes you to act and do things that you know are wrong, but you do them anyway because people pleasing is more important than doing the right thing. We have a word for this. It's called cowardice, right? Because it's hard to be brave when you want to please people. So I've got the religious leaders, I've got Pilate, and then I think about the third group. I think about the crowd. Maybe, just maybe, it's the crowd, the ordinary everyday people that are at the root of all of this. You see, a few days ago, they were worshipping Jesus. They were praising him. They were gathered to witness his miracles and hear his teaching. Then in an instant, the crowd forgot all of that. And I mean all of it. And they suddenly turn and they want to see him crucified. I mean, that's a big switch, right? A big change. So you have Pilate, the so-called leader. You have the religious leaders who are, let's call them the key influencers, the instigators. But did you notice that they didn't actually influence Pilate, the leader? They didn't, well, I mean, they influenced him a little bit, but not much, right? It was more the masses, the crowd. That was the key. Stirring up the crowd. Yet the crowd didn't have all the information. They had the power, but not the information. They didn't have the facts of the trial. They were just following along. They'd been manipulated quite easily. Now, I don't know if it's you or me, but does this sound like some of the things that we see on social media, some of the complaints we hear about fake news, right? One day, or even in our press, one day we kind of think someone is great, amazing and wonderful. And we love them and we dote on them and we applaud them. And in the next instant, we change our mind. We shout for their downfall and we keep shouting until it happens. It's cancel culture in an instant, right? Because of something they have done wrong. Or at least something we think they've done wrong, maybe. Or maybe we're not entirely sure if they did do it wrong, but we heard a friend of a friend of a friend who had posted on social media, so that must be right that they did something wrong. Some influencer somewhere kind of has manipulated the crowd to believe in a certain way, and now we all cry in unison. Why did the crowd not tell the religious leaders to naff off, right? That was the right response. Why did they let themselves be so easily manipulated? Why did they want to fit in with the rest of the crowd so much that they'd lost their ability to think for themselves? And you know what? I see me in the crowd. So we can see that people pleasing is a cause of a number of problems in today's story. There's injustice, right? There are good people doing crazy things. And then there's the death of an innocent man. So if we answer the question, does people pleasing ruin your life? Well, I think it can. But I think more importantly, it can also ruin other people's lives. Now, sure, this may be a tad extreme. I will grant you that. You know, I don't want to kind of over dramatize what's going on because, you know, I appreciate this is not true. Every time that pleasing people happens, someone doesn't always have to be led away to be crucified. But I do wonder if when people pleasing is at the expense of our own integrity, our own values, whether some part of our soul is quashed every time. I wonder if sometimes the consequences of our people pleasing are also bigger than what we think. A seemingly nothing statement on social media, for example, well, I've seen that cause all kinds of issues that we don't know about, that we don't talk about. And so the way we get around this in our head, the way we justify this, is to kind of act like Pilate in some respects. When we find out we're part of the crowd, when we find out we've been manipulated, we just kind of go along and say, well, I'm just going to wash my hands of the guilt. I'm going to go along with it, but I'm not really party to it. Right? But let me tell you, that doesn't work, does it? It just doesn't. We have to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility for our own actions. We can't just get away with that. So all of that said, right, if I see this people pleasing in effect, how do I deal with people pleasing? How do I deal with it in my own life? What are the lessons that I can learn from today's passage? Well, I think there are three key things that would have helped everybody here, right? And we can learn from them. And one of them, the final one, I think has been the undercurrent to everything that we've talked about so far today. I think it's actually the key to it all, if I'm honest. So the first is this, the first principle, make space to find knowledge. Now, Proverbs 19:2 says, enthusiasm without knowledge is no good. Haste makes mistakes. Now, notice that last line, right? Haste makes mistakes. We see that, don't we, with the crowd. 1 minute they're worshipping Christ. The next minute they want him crucified. Haste. We don't take a moment. We don't take I don't know what a moment is, but we don't take that or a moment. We don't pause. We jump straight in with both feet. And it can cause problems, right? So maybe, just maybe, I should delay before I act, before I speak, before I say anything. Before I agree to anything. Maybe a delay before I repost stuff on social, or before I send that email would be what the doctor ordered. Just a little bit of a delay. It might not be long. It might just be a few seconds. It might be a few minutes. It might be a few days. I don't know, but I think it's going to help, right? And it's going to help me do one thing. If I use that time wisely, that pause wisely. What's that? To find knowledge, to make the space to find knowledge. Notice the first line of that proverb. Enthusiasm without knowledge is no good, right? The crowd were enthusiastic. Everybody was enthusiastic, but they had no knowledge and it didn't lead to any good. So we need to take responsibility for knowing. It's how we don't get manipulated by crazy influencers trying to stir up trouble. And we get knowing, we get understanding by asking questions, right? Don't just accept the facts given to you by the people that you want to please or by the crowd that you want to fit in with, especially on social media. Don't just repost because it tickles your itch, because everyone else in your tribe or in your crowd is reposting it. Stop. Don't make haste and get knowledge for yourself by asking questions. Find out the facts for yourself. Now, I can't begin to tell you how important this actually is. And I appreciate this is me speaking to me more than to anyone else watching this, right? Now, I have had to learn from this. I appreciate this because I have changed recently what I do, share and repost on social media. right? It has actually affected my behavior. I just take the time to question the facts. And I'm glad I do, because sometimes even well-meaning Christians or well-meaning Christian websites will post stuff that is a bit clickbaity, right? It's a bit incendiary. It's kind of, the church isn't immune from this. The religious leaders weren't immune from this. And they've not really checked out the facts before posting. It sounds good. It kind of tickles their itch. Now, I don't think any of us are immune from this, right? And I think it's practical advice that we can follow, because the Bible, well, let's just be clear. It's fundamentally practical, isn't it? And I like that. So the second lesson that I can learn from this is maybe not hanging out as much with toxic people, right? So let's bring another character into this story. Let's look at a guy called the Apostle Paul. Before he converted to Christianity, he was very much a people pleaser, right? Which led to the death of a whole bunch of Christians, let me tell you. He was an instigator. He was involved in all kinds of things because he was trying to fit in to please his crowd, to please his tribe, his group, right? But then he gets converted to Christianity. And after his conversion, he wrote this: "Bad company corrupts good character." Wow. That is something we should put on our mirrors. Bad company corrupts good character. So if we head back to our story, the trial of Jesus, we can think, for example, about the religious leaders. Now, not everyone in that group would have had the same opinion. I'm sure some of them would have had questions. Some of them would have known that they were breaking God's commands to do what they were doing, right? It's just natural human behavior. Not everyone's going to be the ardent enthusiast, but they capitulated to the extremists so that they could fit in. And I wonder, in hindsight, if they would now say that they should have walked away much earlier on in the process to sort of extract themselves from that group. You see, it's the people who don't listen to our opinion that shout us down constantly because of their cause. No matter how noble or great, those people, that crowd that convinces us that wrong is right, it's bad company. And you know what? They corrupt good character. And sometimes a way to deal with people pleasing and approval addiction is to move away from the people you're trying to please a little bit. Give yourself a bit of space, a little bit of distance. And maybe, just maybe, let's not hang out with them as much. Now, one of the things that I've started doing, taking my own advice, right, was I started to unfollow people on social media, specifically people that kept reposting fake news. Not because I didn't like them, not because they weren't my friends, but it removed me from the temptation to get drawn into it. And that was actually very, very helpful for me, right? It was actually helpful for me not to get drawn in. It's good for my soul. I'm trying not to corrupt my character. And take it from me, that helped, right? So number one, make space to find knowledge. Number two, stop hanging out with toxic people. But neither of these really mean anything without the third and final point. I think it's the key. And it's this, it's finding approval in the right places. So let's go back to the Apostle Paul, right? He goes from being part of the death of Christians to becoming a Christian and radically changing the world. But what caused that? What was it that changed in him that sparked this massive change in the world, right? Well, he wrote this: "We speak not to please man, but to please God." And I think therein lies the secret to his change, to the success of the transformation of the world, if you like. He was doing what he was doing to please God and not to please man. He is finding approval in all of the right places. And if I head back then to our story of Christ on trial, then I look at that and I see that the only person who knew he was actually approved by God, that did actually get their approval from the right source, that was living out this whole I'm trying to please God, not man thing, was Jesus. Now, Jesus is more concerned with doing what pleases God, with doing what we call the will of God, what God wants us to do. And when we understand that we're approved by God, well, I think it stops us seeking so much the approval of man, because we've got the approval of God. Why do I need the approval of man? Now, I appreciate this sounds very simple in theory and not always that straightforward to work out. I will grant you that. But when we seek to please him, we stop living out of this need to please people. So let's think about the religious leaders, right? I think they would have known. They would have known if they was trying to please God, right, that obeying God's laws about lying and not giving false testimony were definitely way more important to God than what they were actually doing, right? Pilate would have known that God was about truth and justice, that God was about a different type of leadership, much more than about the opinions of a crowd. He would have led a different way. You see, finding approval in the right place in God would have made him secure as a leader. It also would have meant that the crowd wouldn't have capitulated in quite an astonishing way and following kind of everybody else in that crowd. Now, as I said, this is not easy to do, is it? But I do think this could be the answer to our insecurities, to our fears, which is often at the root of people pleasing. You know that people pleasing is kind of based on our low self-esteem, isn't it? Our insecurities and our fears, our need for approval, sort of approval addiction. And if somehow we can take our focus away from that and know that God approves of us and that he accepts us, actually, if our lives become about pleasing him rather than man, about getting that approval in the right place, what a difference that would make to humanity. What a difference that would make to our self-esteem, right? And we see this in the Apostle Paul's life. When he switched his source of approval, he changed the world. I mean, he actually changed the history of the world in which we're living. Now, it may be for us that we just change our own lives or the lives of the people around us. We may not change the world. We might do. I don't know. But what we don't do is we don't ruin our lives. We don't quash our soul anymore. In fact, we start to live and breathe and feel free in a way that we've never done before, because we know fundamentally God approves of us. I mean, that's quite astounding, isn't it? Just say to yourself, God approves of me. I mean, God, would you help us, please, to live out our lives in a way that is pleasing to you? And would you give us the courage to do the right thing, even when we're faced with the difficult choices and the scorn of public opinion? Lord, would you help us? I ask in Jesus' name.
Wow, brilliant talk. Thank you so much, Matt. Loads to think about there. We've already got a few comments, but if you would like to ask some questions or put your comments in, please do that now. We're going to go into a time of worship now. We're going to have a song. You can sing along if you know it, or if you don't, then just read the words, use it as a time of meditation to think about what the words mean to you. And this song is called Overcome. And there's a little bit in it that I wrote down, and the lyrics say, "For every fear, there's an empty grave. For the risen one, Jesus, has overcome." So if you've got a fear in your life today, then think about this. Think about these lyrics and the truth in this and how Jesus could help you with that.
Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. For there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. For there is a one who's overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus. As the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shouts with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. For there is a one who's overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for there is a one who's overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for there is a one who's overcome.
Wow, there we go.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much, John and Anna Grace. Another brilliant song. Love that.
As always. Really like that track. For every fear, there's an empty grave. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
So,
And a great talk as well. Well done, Matt. Thanks for that.
oh, you're welcome.
That's meant to sound sincere. That was meant to sound sincere. Sorry. Sometimes I am cursed with a sarcastic tone of voice. I can't help that, I'm afraid. Sorry.
So every now and again, Matt, they're all right. Yeah.
Genuinely, I thought that was really great. Loads of practical stuff and lots for us to talk about. So brilliant. Thank you.
No worries. I tell you what, there's no case of an ego getting inflated in CROWD Church, is there, Sal? Let's just put it.
No, well, I'm here to help as always with anything I can, Matt.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. Well, get writing your questions, thoughts, comments in the comments. I see some people have put some stuff in there already. What stood out in the talk? What stood out to you guys? And what questions do you have? Get writing that in the comments now. As I believe it is Conversation Street time.
I think it is that time. Yeah.
You know what we need, Sal? I need some kind of Conversation Street kind of intro with a little bit of jazz music or something that we could.
Yeah, that would be good. Maybe not jazz, but yeah, let's talk about that. We could have a little kind of some graphics and stuff. I think we should do a bit of that, definitely.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, I found it really, really helpful, Matt. I think it's a tricky one for me because I would say I'm definitely a people pleaser.
Okay.
I like people to like me, and I find it really difficult if I think that I've offended someone or people don't like me, and I kind of then think about it all the time and think about, how I can kind of fix that, and that's not that's not helpful to kind of be that way. So following your 3 points, I think is really helpful. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can turn off that part of your personality.
No.
Because if you are naturally a people pleaser, that's a really difficult thing to come against. I thought as I got older that I would care less. I don't yet. No. About some things, yes. About some things, definitely. But I still have this kind of, this need for kind of people to kind of like me and things. So that was really helpful. I wondered if you could give us an example from your life about when you've struggled with people pleasing, perhaps.
Yeah, I'd say it's the same thing. I think naturally, I quite like it when people like me. I think we all do, don't I mean, it's not a bad thing when people like you, and it's like I said at the start, I think sometimes people pleasing can be a good thing. It's good when people do like you. It means you're doing something right. If everybody thinks you're a complete nutter, then there's probably something to that. Do you know what I mean? And we need to have a little look at that. So like you, I like it when people like me. I think where I first started to notice this was actually in business with clients. And we had a company at the time where it was quite service orientated. And so you were always really twitchy about clients that didn't like you, if they stopped liking you during the project, because ultimately they paid you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And so you were always kind of like, I need to please all of these clients. But I think as I've grown older, one of the things I've learned in business, which I think has carried on over into life a little bit, is actually they're going to be clients for whatever reason that don't like me. And some of that is my fault, some of that is their fault, but that's just the law of humanity in some respects. And so I would say it's been the biggest lesson I've learned in business. A sign of a mature business is to understand actually some clients, if I go down those 3 points, they apply in business just as much as they apply in the real world. And so that for me has been a big learning curve, would be in that whole area right there.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Just having a little look at the comments here. I know Nicola put some comments in a little bit earlier on about that she struggled in the past with tying herself up in knots, she describes it, trying to please everyone, making herself ill. And I know Nicola quite well. And so I know, Nicola, that you are the sort of person that would, do anything for anyone. And that's a brilliant attribute to have. And I'm not suggesting you should change that. But sometimes, if you do that to the detriment of your own health, to the detriment of your own well-being, that's not a good thing. And I think lots of people kind of get stuck in that feeling if I say no to something, that person still going to accept me if I, so I think actually learning to say no to things is a really good and healthy thing. Yeah, it is.
Matt's put here, hasn't he? And I agree with you, Matt. People pleasing is good if you do it to make them feel good. It's not good if you do it to get acceptance. And I think that's a really interesting split, isn't it? Because there's this really interesting thing in Christian circles, and let's just call it serving, right? As Christians, we all like to serve. It's part of the Christian faith, is serving. And so doing stuff that in effect costs you to do, right, which is what in effect service is and servitude is actually part of the Christian faith. But again, I think we just have to look at our motives as to why we're doing what we're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know, what do you think on that side of serving things?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think serving is really important. If none of us did, then who would help the person in need, or who would kind of do the things that need to be done. But sometimes we do it with the wrong attitude, don't we? If I'm just going to say yes to everything and do more and more and more and more, and then we can be doing it for the wrong reasons, and that actually is going to cause us harm and not be helpful for other people, because then we get resentful, don't we? And then we start thinking, I've done this and I've done that, and nobody's kind of thanked me, and then we get into kind of doing things for the wrong reasons. And I think some people in the past might have fallen into the trap of sort of saying yes to everything that they've been asked to do because they want to serve, and then actually to the detriment of perhaps their own family, then not there when they need to be, or for themselves, for their health and things. So I think there is definitely a balance to be had here. yes, doing things to help other people and not being selfish, but also it's okay to say no sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think the thing that stood out to me the most from this story, because when I was reading and prepping, you know, and you're reading through and you've got the Jewish leaders, you've got Pilate and you've got the crowd, and they're all doing it, and you're looking at it going, these are all crazy. And so then you kind of spot that actually everyone's trying to please everybody else in the midst of all of this. Okay, well, let's talk about people pleasing. The thing that stood out to me the most was Pilate. The Roman governor, the leader. Do you know what I mean? The man who knew Christ was innocent, yet did what the crowd wanted. He did entirely the wrong thing.
Yeah, because of his fear, isn't it? Yeah. His fear of what would they think, what would they do if he did the right thing, made him do completely the wrong thing. Yeah.
And I think anybody who's in a position of leadership, any kind of leadership, whether it's church leadership, whether it is work, whether it's in a community, whether it's whatever it is, do you know what I mean? Wherever you are, whatever kind of leadership there is a temptation, I think, to do this sort of people pleasing aspect. Do you know what I mean? When actually leadership calls, I think, sometimes for you to be brave. And I said that I don't think you can be brave and people please at the same time. And I think that's when you know it's going wrong. Do you know what I mean? When you're compromising your own values. What would he go in the comments here? Matt says, I'm in my absolute flow when in service of those I see I can help, and it nourishes my self-worth and purpose. Yeah. I mean, there's actually a lot to be said for that, actually. We should probably do a live stream on serving at some point, because that would be quite an interesting thing to talk about.
And I think that can give you a real energy, can't it, and purpose as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sharon, I like what 1 John 4:19, we love because he first loved us, receive the love, give the love. Yep. Love that scripture. Nick has put, one of my gifts is acts of service, so it's hard sometimes to see where the line is. Yeah, I totally agree. And like they always used to say to me at Bible school, it's better to have a little wildfire than no fire at all. Do you know what I mean? I'd probably rather serve a little bit too much than not do any serving, if that makes sense.
There's a definite balance. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of really tough things to kind of think about there, and a really good reflection to have. Like fear of people, that's kind of one of the big things, isn't it? We were talking about that song saying about Jesus overcoming fear, and I think we are so afraid, aren't we, of what people will think of us, but actually, it doesn't matter what they think of us. Easy to say, difficult to actually live in.
That's basically the nutshell right there, isn't it? It's like we know what to do, but then doing it is an entirely different thing, because circumstances and pressure and so on and so forth. No, I totally
absolutely
get that.
But even just your tip there of sort of saying, pause, think, reflect. That's so important, isn't it? And that can just stop us doing that instant kind of perhaps the wrong thing in that moment. So brilliant. Should we have a little look at Nicola's question?
Yeah.
Now, Nicola, at this time, after we've had a few sort of the deep and meaningful questions, Nicola likes to give us a little nudge in the right direction of something a bit lighter. So Nicola's question today,
and it's worth saying, sorry, Matt, before you carry on, Sal, I saw your question on Facebook, but Nicola got precedence on the text messages. It's just the way it worked out this week. Sorry, dude.
Sorry, Matt. Nicola's question is, would you rather 30 butterflies instantly appear from nowhere every time you sneeze, or one very angry squirrel appear from nowhere every time you cough?
What kind of a question is this?
Nicola, you have had some thinking time this week. My goodness. Okay,
I think you need to get out a little bit more, Nicola. I'm not going to lie.
It's got to be the butterflies. An angry squirrel is a terrifying prospect. I mean, imagine a poor person who's got COVID and has got a continuous cough, and every time they're coughing, an angry squirrel is appearing. That's just terrifying. No, thank you. Whereas butterflies, it'd just be like being a Disney princess, wouldn't it, if you sneezed and butterflies appeared?
A Disney princess. Yeah, this is what we're living in, a Disney movie. I have enough issues with squirrels in my garden. Okay, I'm now going to go to Matt's question. Which children's TV character do you most identify with? And do they possess any Christ-like attributes?
Okay, I'll go with Banana Man. Because
Okay, I was not expecting that.
Like Jesus, he's ever alert to the call to justice.
Wow. Well, I was going to go with He-Man, and I was not going to say any reason why.
Oh, no. Wow. Okay. Skeletor, maybe, but, you know.
Oh, and on that note, let's watch Catch Up,
Let's
shall we?
catch up.
Hello and welcome to this week's Sunday Catch Up. For those of you who don't know me, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Josh Edmondson. I am one of the members of the team here at CROWD Church, and I'm a student at the University of St Andrews studying physics. If you have never watched the stream before, welcome. It's so cool to have you here. Let me just explain what Catch Up actually is. Every week we get in pictures and videos from members of the community, and we put them up in this little segment called Catch Up, just so that we get to see what everyone else is actually getting up to. In usual fashion, I will kick off with something I have done this week. So this week was my first week leading my University Hall Impact Group. At most universities across the UK, there is something called the Christian Union, which is just a society essentially, but it's all about sort of evangelical outreach at universities and things like that. And so within the CU, they have something called Impact Groups, which are groups based in university halls. And the idea is that you reach out to the other people living in that hall to share with them the love of Christ. That's pretty much what the Impact Groups are for. I had the first session this week, which I was leading, and yeah, it was really cool. Really looking forward to see what God does with that. I also have a fun physics fact for you this week, and I promise it is actually quite a fun one. Normally when I say that, my sister rolls her eyes or my family groans, but this is actually quite interesting. Turns out, tractor beams are a real thing. If you've ever watched a sci-fi movie that has aliens in it or something, you'll have seen tractor beams before, which is just like that beam of light that the UFOs would use to pick up a person and zap them into their ship. I thought they were completely fictional, but no. At the University of St Andrews, there is a research group that specifically uses tractor beams to hold particles in place, which I thought was just really cool. It doesn't look like you'll be able to use these tractor beams to lift anything or yourself into a flying spaceship anytime soon though. Unfortunately, they only seem to really work with things that are about 1,000 millionths of a meter, so like a single molecule of water kind of size. So, you know, we've got a bit of a ways to go, but I thought that was quite interesting. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get on to the catch-up clips.
Back to Maths with Elias. Today we cover integration. I know you're wondering, what is integration? You're about to find out. Integration is the opposite of differentiation. When we integrate the curve y equals f of x, come up with a new equation to work out the area underneath the curve. Got the b and the a, dx, always in respect to dx, that's important. And that is how we integrate. So now you know. What's the practical use to me today, Elias? Absolutely nothing.
Great, thank you very much for sending all those in. It's so cool seeing what everyone is getting up to. If you want to have your stuff on Catch Up, you can send in your pictures and videos either to the WhatsApp number that you will have seen on the bottom of the screen throughout this stream. Wow, that was a lot of rhyming. Or you can use hashtag CrowdCatchup on Instagram. That's all from me this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.
Very good.
Wow.
So now I know about differentiation.
What is it with the maths and physics? Flipping heck. Can we go back to puppies and kittens, please?
There definitely seems to be a theme, doesn't there? So Elias is teaching us about maths, Joss about physics. And Josh, bless him, is full of cold there. So,
Aw.
yeah, that's why he was doing that deep, croaky voice. Although apparently I've had a bit of a deep, croaky voice, according to Matt. Sounding a bit weird. But thank you, Josh. And well done to
Thank you,
Keone for
Josh.
smashing a driving theory, Sal.
I know, brilliant. That's my daughter has passed her driving theory test this week. She's had it planned twice before, and it's twice been cancelled because of lockdown. So finally she managed to do it and pass. So brilliant news.
Well, are you going to loan her the car? That's the question.
Well, she's got to pass the practical first. So let's see how she
but
gets
once
on
she's
with
done
that.
that, are you going to loan her your car?
Maybe if I need her to drive me somewhere or pick me up.
That's how it works, right? That's how it works. I remember when Josh passed his test and we got him put on the insurance, it was an eye-watering amount of money. So just brace yourself.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Just brace
yeah.
yourself. So that was catch up. So thanks, guys, for doing that. And thanks for joining us this week. Next week, we are going to be carrying on our series through Mark's Gospel. Both Sally and I will be back to host. And like I said at the start, if you're around, I will be at Frontline next week doing the talk in the morning. So the 10:30 service. If you want to come join us in Liverpool, you're more than welcome. It'd be great to meet you there. But I think that wraps it up from me. Sal, anything from you?
No, I think that's great. I hope everyone has a brilliant week. Let's hope we get a bit more sunshine and just enjoy a little bit more freedom.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being part of the stream. Thanks for all your comments and questions and interactions. Do come and join us again next week, Sunday at 4 p.m. As we carry on just live streaming church. It's awesome. Oh, and make sure you kind of connect with us on Facebook and Instagram and email and all those kind of things. It'd be great to see you there. So
Yes,
thanks.
definitely.
Oh yeah, thanks, Mr. Matthew Cox. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks, Sarah. Everybody's saying thanks. Good to see everybody.
Brilliant.
Bless
Oh,
you.
thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being with us. Have a good week.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for there is a one who's overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus, as the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shouts with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for there is a one who's overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, For there is a one who's overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. For there is a one who's overcome. And for every fear there's an empty grave. For there is a one